Hayes was a groundbreaking American soul singer, songwriter, composer, and actor. Hayes influenced generations of artists, especially in soul, funk, and hip-hop. Here's some interesting facts about his life. Born on August 20th, 1942 in Covington, Tennessee, Isaac Hayes was raised in extreme poverty. His mother Eula Nay Wade died when he was very young, and his father Isaac Hayes Sr. abandoned the family shortly after. He was raised by his maternal grandparents, who were poor sharecroppers. Growing up in rural Tennessee, he worked in the cotton fields as a child to help support his family. At age 5, Hayes began singing at his local church, and he taught himself to play the piano, Hammond organ, flute, and saxophone by ear. Hayes dropped out of high school to work at a meatpacking plant in Memphis by day and playing nightclubs and juke joints several evenings a week in Memphis and nearby northern Mississippi. He also worked in restaurants, washing dishes and sometimes cooking to earn a living. Isaac Hayes was functionally illiterate during part of his youth. However, he was determined to improve his life. He returned to school, earned his high school diploma at age 21, and worked hard to educate himself. Isaac Hayes' first real job in music was as a session musician and songwriter at Stax Records in Memphis during the early 1960s. Hayes started by playing piano and organ on recordings for other artists at Stax. His talent quickly stood out, and he began writing songs with lyricist David Porter. Together, they formed a legendary songwriting team, penning hits like Soul Man, Hold On, I'm Comin', and When Something Is Wrong With My Baby. These songs were performed by artists like Sam and Dave, helping define the Memphis soul sound. Isaac Hayes played a major role in helping save Stax Records during a critical turning point in the late 1960s, though it wasn't a permanent rescue. In 1968, Hayes released his debut album, Presenting. Isaac Hayes, a jazzy, largely improvised effort that was commercially unsuccessful. However, he didn't give up. Hayes broke traditional song formats with long orchestral arrangements and spoken-word intros. His 1969 album Hot Buttered Soul had just 4 tracks, but still went gold. He often recorded songs with lush strings, horns, and psychedelic touches, paving the way for the emergence of disco and funk. The funky, hyperbolic syllabic Escuela Mystic runs nearly 10 minutes, a significant break from the standard 3-minute soul pop songs. In 1971, Hayes was asked to produce the soundtrack to blaxploitation film Shaft. The theme from Shaft, 1971, not only won an Oscar but also became one of the most recognizable film themes ever. The wah-wah guitar intro is iconic. The song topped the Billboard Hot 100 and became a soul-funk anthem. He won an Academy Award for Best Original Song for the theme from Shaft. Hayes originally auditioned to play the lead role of Shaft. The producers loved him, but ultimately cast Richard Roundtree, though they gave Hayes the chance to score the film and to play a cameo role as a bartender. Hayes was known for his charismatic and captivating stage presence. His live performances were often dramatic, with his deep voice resonating throughout the arena, creating an almost theatrical experience. He would often wear his iconic gold medallion, sunglasses, and long black cape, making him a striking figure on stage. His dapper style, with sharp suits and bold jewelry, became part of his iconic persona. His shaved head became one of his most iconic features, especially in a time when most black men would have an afro, all these factors contributing to his larger-than-life image. Isaac Hayes was married 4 times and had 12 children. His first marriage happened when he was still a teenager, to a woman named Dancy. This marriage was short-lived and mostly undocumented publicly. His second marriage was to Emily Ruth Watson in 1965. The couple had several children together. They divorced in 1972. Hayes married Mignon Harley in 1973. This marriage lasted until 1986. They had children together and were often seen publicly during Hayes' peak music career. His final marriage was to Ajoa Hayes, and they remained together until his death in 2008. They had a son named Nana Quadjo Hayes, born in 2006. Isaac Hayes became a central figure in the blaxploitation genre, helping to define its sound with his funky cinematic music. His work on Shaft and Truck Turner, 1974, solidified his place in the movement, creating several outstanding albums and hits in the 70s. However, Isaac Hayes faced financial struggles in the mid-1970s and filed for bankruptcy in 1976. At the time, his personal and professional finances were poorly handled, and he reportedly had little control over how his earnings were managed. Hayes was known for his generosity and had a number of people depending on him financially. At the peak of his career, Hayes lived a lavish lifestyle, which included expensive homes and cars. As his finances began to spiral, these expenses became unsustainable, contributing to his bankruptcy. Hayes was also involved in a legal dispute with his record label, Stax Records, after the company went bankrupt in 1975. This left him without some of the royalties he was owed, adding to his financial stress. Isaac Hayes' comeback in the 1980s and beyond was marked by a shift from his musical heyday in the 1970s to a more diversified career in entertainment. One of the pivotal moments in this return was his 1988 album, Ike's Mood, which helped re-establish his place in the music scene. While it wasn't as commercially successful as his 1970s work, it showed that Hayes was still a viable force in the industry. During the 1980s, Hayes' 1970s music, especially the Shaft soundtrack, became a staple in hip-hop. Artists like Public Enemy, De La Soul, and Wu-Tang Clan sampled his work, which helped keep his legacy alive in the hip-hop world. Perhaps his most significant comeback in the 1990s was his role as chef on the animated TV show South Park. This role revitalized his career and introduced him to a new generation of fans. Hayes' voice as chef gave him a second act in entertainment, allowing him to become a pop culture figure once again. His involvement in South Park also led to him receiving widespread recognition for his voice acting talents. In 2006, he departed from the show, and it caused controversy. It was reported that Hayes left the show due to the creators, Trey Parker and Matt Stone, making fun of his religion, Scientology. However, to this day opinions differ why Hayes ultimately left the show. Hayes had found out he had Ghanaian ancestry and was proud of his African roots, and even traveled to Ghana to trace his ancestry and gave his son a Ghanaian name. In 1992, during his visit to Ghana, Hayes was honored with an African chieftaincy title. He was given the name Nana Kwame Ampadu. Hayes' trip also solidified his involvement in Pan-Africanism, a movement that advocates for solidarity among African nations and the African diaspora. Isaac Hayes passed away on August 10, 2008 at the age of 65. His death shocked the world, as he was still an influential figure in both music and pop culture. Isaac Hayes was found unconscious at his home in Memphis, Tennessee by his wife, Ajoa Hayes, and his son, Isaac Hayes III. He was immediately rushed to the hospital, but was pronounced dead shortly afterward. Hayes died of stroke-related complications. He had been suffering from health issues in the months leading up to his death, and it was reported that he had been hospitalized earlier in the year for treatment of high blood pressure and other health concerns. Isaac Hayes left behind a profound legacy that continues to influence not just the music industry but also pop culture, film, and television. His contributions spanned across multiple artistic realms, and his innovative style and iconic presence continue to resonate with fans and artists alike.